Hey there folks, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the FondJoy Batman v Superman Batman figure. Here's the quick look at the packaging. As you can see, it's pretty sleek and savvy. Got a nice picture of Ben Affleck's Batman right there. That's like an artist rendition or something. You get a little hint at the Batman v Superman logo with the bat ears and the Superman logo right there. Batman in gold, which is a little bit more reminiscent of Michael Keaton's Batman, but I don't mind. And you got a little magnet on here and you open it up. You can see that's where the plastic prison is and the figure was. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the figure. Alright guys, so before we actually take a look at the Batman figure, we're going to move him to the side and we're going to take a look at the accessories. First up, you guys, we get a flight stand. We get this base right here, which is pretty reminiscent of the old school Hot Toys bases. It says Batman right on the front. Not the biggest fan of the font, and it's a little crooked, I think. Just slightly cockeyed. Not a big deal. But then you get the BVS logo right on there, which looks pretty cool. And you get a stand here that's a little bit unorthodox from what we're used to seeing. It does have a spring-loaded clamp, which is pretty cool. And it is pretty stiff, but it's ratcheted, so be careful with this. And it does just plug right in there, so that's cool. You get two, not one, but two grappling gun holding hands. If you want to get a look at what these look like compared to the McFarlane ones, you can see that pretty similar. McFarlane one's missing some of the details, but that's okay. You get two Batarang holding hands, which you can actually do a few different things with these hands. You can hold the base of the cowl with it. If you wanted to have him holding his empty cowl, or not empty, but if you wanted to have the unmasked head, which we'll get to in a second, you can have him holding the cowl, just using this as a demonstration. You can also have him using this to hold the cape. You can probably use the grappling gun holding hands for that as well. And then you also get a thumbs up hand. And again, the details on these hands are pretty solid. Looks like leather gloves. You got the hand wraps on there, the gauntlets, and you do get a pair of fists on the figure, so that's pretty cool. Two, not one, but two Batarangs. Very accurate to BVS with the silver paint in this the size, the silver paint, and the sculpting, unlike the McFarlane one, which is literally a brick. Another accessory you get is the grapnel gun. You can see that there compared to the McFarlane. Now, I'm not just trying to josh on the McFarlane here the whole time, because I actually do have something about that figure that I want to praise it for over the FondJoy, but these accessories are literally toy accessories. He's carrying around a toy. Nonetheless, the last accessory that you get is the unmasked Bruce Wayne head. However, this doesn't come with every version. You don't get the specific... If you don't get the right version, you won't get the unmasked head. If you get your figure and it just comes in this, then you don't have an unmasked head. The unmasked head comes in a separate box, which I have heard some comments about regarding possibly unlicensed head sculpts here. FondJoy did start off as a third-party company, and they acquired the DC license, so people are a little bit skeptical about this, the fact that it comes in a separate box. However, I have an alternate solution, or not solution, but an alternate argument to that. It's very possible that this is just done to a budgetary reason. Not every version comes with the unmasked head, so they just make the base figure in one box, and then if you get the unmasked head, you get a small little box that has the unmasked head. That makes a lot more sense to me for a company that's just kind of getting their footing in the license game. Instead of having to make a whole separate packaging to accommodate the unmasked head, they just throw it in a separate box. That makes sense to me. I don't know if that's the actual reason or if it actually really is a licensing issue and they're just trying to be sneaky. It could go either way, but I like the idea of budgetary reasons. So, as far as the figure goes, this is hands down a stellar figure. This is probably one of the best figures in terms of, for myself, in terms of like bang for your buck, really. I spent $60 on this figure. I think his actual retail price is around $20 to $35. I got him on Amazon. I've heard some people get him on AliExpress. I'm not a big fan of that idea. I'll tell you that right now. I was even skeptical when it comes to Amazon because I don't trust Amazon whatsoever. I'm not a fan of Amazon. No offense, Amazon. But I'm not. So I was a little bit skeptical, but it worked out. So I will be putting the link that I used to purchase this guy in the description down below. It's a safe link. You can get it on there. You don't have to worry, because I've seen a lot of people review this figure and they don't really tell you where to get it. You can't get it on Big Bag Toy Store. And if you go on eBay, people are selling it for $150 to $200. So there's no real trustworthy way to get this. And I don't know if I trust getting it on AliExpress. I've never bought anything from there, but I know a lot of knockoffs are on there. And since this figure's already retailed at $20 to $35, getting it on AliExpress, I'm not certain you know whether you're getting a knockoff or not. I don't know for sure, but it is something to think about. So if you want to get this guy, I guess I recommend getting him on Amazon. I'm sure there's other places you can do that are beyond my knowledge at this moment, but I don't know. Discretion. But as far as the figure goes, it is a bang for your buck. You get a figure that essentially feels like a import figure. I mean, technically it is, but it feels like a higher-end SH Figure Arts Mafex figure, but it's got this weight and this girth to it because of the scaling being more in favor of a McFarlane figure. You really just get something here that is quite special. The likeness and the head paint, or the likeness and the paintwork of the head is incredible. The overall sculpting of the figure is phenomenal, accurate as can be. There's a few different things here that we want to talk about that could be better. But I mean, this is the first figure that they've done that's licensed that really just is a competitor for anything else that any other company's done. The closest competition that this figure has is the original BVS Mafex figure. And I'm pretty certain this guy blows him out of the water because Mafex's quality control wasn't really the best back then. And it's also probably a little undersized. But this guy's got the gold paint everywhere on the belt, the gauntlets for the blades, the toe caps, the little pieces back here that I didn't even know were part of the suit until recently. The knuckles, it's pretty phenomenal. I have a little bit of a mishap right there, as you can see. There's a few things that are missing, though, and I'm going to go over them real quick. I do want to praise the McFarlane figure for a moment. This is a custom, it's in the works, but it is a custom McFarlane figure. Some people will not agree with the way that I painted this. Sometimes people seem to forget that color grading is a thing. So when you watch the BVS film, the suit looks much closer to this color on screen because Zack Snyder does things very dark. He color grades movies very dark. But if you watch if you look at those kind of screen test images and stuff, there's a lot of images where the suit looks very close to this. The base color that they chose isn't too far off, and I'll show images up to give an example of what I'm talking about. I did some shading and I did some greenish gray colors here and there, and also the gold throughout, because there is gold paint throughout the figure. This figure doesn't have it, but this figure has something that not any other Batman v Superman figure that I've seen has. Not the Mafex, not the Mattel, not the Mezco, neither one of the versions of Hot Toys, including the new one. Not even the Jack specific figure that you see Cosplay Chris repaint. This figure has the sculpted wrinkles. That's one of my favorite aspects about the suit, because it really brings home the idea that this is a fabric suit on top of a muscular body. This figure has that. This one does not. This is the only figure I've seen have that. And it also has a little bit more defined musculature, which this figure could have used. It doesn't need it, but I think it would have brought it up just a little bit more. However, the four lower abs right here being less defined is movie accurate, but as far as everything around that, I would have liked something a little bit more muscular like this. I have my own ideas on what this specific McFarlane figure was kind of based off of, and I'll go over that in its own video. But in terms of on film, you don't get much more accurate than this other than what I just mentioned. The only other two things that I could bring about is the texturing of the bat and the fact that it's not battle damaged. And also these lines are a little too pronounced. They are there in the movie. Some people argue that they're not, but these lines are on the bat symbol in the movie. And the texturing is a little bit off. The texturing on the McFarlane figure for the bat logo is more accurate. So there's that. And it's also missing the battle damage on the belt. Other than that, this figure's pretty darn perfect. It feels really good. This right here is the only joint that I have that's a little bit questionable, but it feels really good. The cape is pretty solid for the price point. It's got the pleather look. It's not a great material. It doesn't have any sort of weathering or the scallops or even the cuts. But it's got a wire. It's a nice big cape. I'm probably going to put this on my McFarlane and get this guy a more higher end cape because my McFarlane's going to be more of a statuesque figure. This is going to be my main BVS Batman for this scale specifically. Probably in general as well. But yeah, this guy's completely solid. You get the details back there with the belt buckle and the paint throughout. There's only really a couple weird things that this guy's got going on. Little paint splotch right there. And then there's like gunmetal paint on the torso and then some on the abs, but then nowhere else. But then you got the paintwork on the head that's absolutely phenomenal. The paintwork on the unmasked head that's phenomenal. Yeah, this guy's pretty dang solid. I have probably three gripes for this figure. And one of which I'm not too certain I actually have a problem with. And the second is something that I can fix. So technically it doesn't bother me, but it's something to consider. So the first being that the head is possibly too big. However, the more I look at it and the more that I mess around with the figure, I don't think that that's the case. And also, if you really wanted to... Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. If you really wanted to, you could pop the head off, pull this ball joint back, and have it sit like this. I'm going to take the cape off for the minute, for the rest of the video, actually, until we do a head swap. You can see that that actually raises the head up a little bit, and it offers up something a little bit more neutral. I think that the Batman v Superman suit is a little bit inconsistent in the movie. I think that there is some scenes, I've heard somebody say this and I can't remember who it was, but I think that they might have, in some scenes, altered Batman's suit to make him look a little bit bigger and stockier in some scenes. For an example, I think the neck looked the shortest in the warehouse scene, and he looked the biggest in the warehouse scene. And those images that I was talking about before, I'll throw them up here again so you guys can see. There's an edited version and an unedited version where he's got a little bit of the cowl bows out at the side here, and then the neck bows out on the side here, and then there's an edited version where the mask is much more streamlined. So it's kind of hard to believe what the actual suit really looked like when you're standing in front of Ben Affleck. As far as the height here, I really do like it. But then you got like these statues of the film that you see where the costume's draped over a mannequin and the head's a lot more raised and it's kind of more based off that promotional artwork. And then you got the actual scenes in the movie where the head's extremely short and then sometimes it's not that short. So there are a little bit inconsistencies, and it's kind of something that I've kind of more dabbled in recently, kind of studying it the way that I study my Michael Myers stuff and kind of really getting down the sort of different looks of the suit. And then also, again, with the coloring, in the movie it looks very dark like this. However, I still think it could use some paint work. It looks very dark like this in the movie, but there's other times where the suit looks a little bit brighter. Actually, it looks darker than this in the movie. Not quite as dark as the Justice League suit, but yeah. So there's that. The second problem that I have with it is that this point right here, and this is actually something that you see cosplayers have a problem with as well. You can see it in some of Cosplay Chris's videos, where this piece right here overhangs the head of the bat. And the way that I would go about fixing this is to push the ball joint back as far as possible and then glue it down right there, and then that creates more of a gap right here for the cape to come out the way you want it to. So there's that. So again, the head, something I'm not too sure I'm upset with right now, and then that's something you can fix. The only other thing that I have a problem with is I would have liked to see open hands. That's literally it. I would have liked to see some open hands. The articulation is completely fine for me. There's not a whole lot of range in the butterfly joints, but it doesn't really, like, I've posed this Batman around more than I probably posed most of the other Batman figures I have in my collection, including the Hush Mafex figure. It just, this Batman feels like a Batman that you can have standing on the table, standing on the shelf, looking like an absolute monster. So yeah, guys, literally just the open hands. There's a lot of different things you can have with the open hands. Is having him grab somebody, having him hold on to something, an action pose, something like that. But as far as everything else goes, the figure's really, really solid. The articulation is really good. And this is a figure that I really feel like that I can mess around with, that I can pose and really get him to just do some fun things that I don't really do with my other Batman figures. A lot of my Batman figures I leave in very generic poses. I mean, I'm much more of a statue poser, a statue pose kind of guy to begin with. But this guy, I really feel like I can mess around with him. You know, like, look at how big he is, and you can get him doing a legitimate sidekick. Maybe he hasn't quite thrown the kick yet. It's a little bit wonky, just because we're on the fly here. But or you can kind of get him kind of up in guard, getting ready to throw down something. Like, there's a lot of playability here. The head can look up more than you'd think. Kind of get him throwing some punches, some batarangs, something, bro. This guy just feels like a really good figure. I didn't spend so much money on him where I feel like I'm going to break him, just because sometimes that's a problem. For example, like my Mafex 89 Batman, I spent so much money on him. Sometimes, you know, you don't really want to... Also, I don't feel the need to pose Michael Keaton's Batman like that, but there is an argument to be said there. You feel like you might break that. Or sometimes you buy a figure to just customize it. Sometimes you buy a figure and you just leave it alone. This feels like a figure that I could do stuff to, but I don't need to. He looks incredible, and I can mess with him and have that freedom and not worry about it. This is probably one of the best kind of most satisfying figures I've bought, and I'm really glad that I did, because I didn't even know this thing existed probably a week and a half ago. Before we exit out, before we get out of here, actually we're going to do a size comparison too, but before we move on, I'm going to do a demonstration for the head sculpt, or the head swap. There's two pegs right here, and then there's the ball joint right there, so that's how you take that off. And I'll show you guys how to do this pretty quickly, and then we'll move on. So I like to put it in position, and then hold him like an ice cream cone. And let me grab this. Put this down. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, alright. So put this down just like that. Of course, it's going to look more difficult on camera. That's not clicked in there all the way, but you guys get the idea. And then you just pop that head joint in there. And I initially had the idea to use this unmasked head for the McFarlane figure, but I think that the heads just it doesn't scale well enough. It's going to be a little bit too big, so that's unfortunate. So that's the way that looks. There's some futzing that needs to be done, but you can kind of get an idea there how that looks. So let's go ahead and take a look at size comparisons. Okay guys, so getting him posed up with other versions of himself from McFarlane. Unfortunately, I only have a few Batman v Superman, or not Batman v Superman. I only have a few Ben Affleck Batmans in general. I don't even have a pop. He's the only Batman I don't even have a pop of. Well, actually, that's not true. I don't have Clooney or Kilmer, but so here's some work in progress McFarlane figures. Here is the Justice League Batman. This figure wasn't even mine. I just really wanted to paint it. It belonged to my friend, but he ended up giving it to me, and I painted it. He's still a work in progress, and here's the work in progress of my BVS. So you can see how they scale together right there. These guys are just a little bit too short. Obviously he's on a stand, so keep that in mind. This figure scales a lot better. This FondJoy figure scales a lot better with your other McFarlane Batman figures. Unfortunately, here he is compared to two other McFarlane Batmans. My custom McFarlane Pattinson Batman and my work in progress Bale Batman. So there's that. I've done some things to him to adjust his proportions. I swapped out his shoulder pads. I raised his diaphragm up a little bit. And I'm also working on making the silhouette of his hips just a little bit more masculine and a little less feminine and weird. Not to say that females are weird, but I don't know. That's probably a poor choice of words. But anyway, so he's a little bit taller than what he would initially be, and so isn't this guy because his head's sitting a little bit taller, and his diaphragm is sitting a little bit taller as well. And he's got different feet. I don't know if that's going to adjust his height. Actually, if anything, he's probably a little bit shorter because of that. But he's still taller overall, but that probably knocked it down some. But yeah, so there's my McFarlane custom Pattinson Batman. Video coming soon on him. One of my best figures that I've done. I'm not quite certain on what I'm doing with the head. I have an idea. This is just kind of basically somewhat painted to kind of match the overall figure. Like I flattened out the mask and stuff. I don't know if I want to stick with this head. However, I kind of like it still because he does do the side eye in the movie quite a bit. So for me, the side eye isn't so much of an issue, but the overall sculpt is. So there's those two guys. I should have grabbed my my Mafex Hush Batman, but here is the Nightfall McFarlane Batman. And then, oh, we got another one right here. I didn't think it was going to be even, but I forgot. Here is my custom work in progress McFarlane Keaton Batman, and I really like the height between these two. I'm not sure if that's a proper height. I can't remember how tall Keaton is, but I'm sure their actual height should be much more different compared to that, but whatever. This is a Mezco head. The figure was completely repainted, and I sprayed it with a matte and glossy finish to sort of give this artificial texture. It's not done yet. Some people probably won't agree with that because of how noticeable it is, but I like it. You can actually feel it. I think it's pretty cool. So there's those two guys. Jesus, I can't talk. The Mafex version 3 of the Christian Bale Batman. He's missing his shoulder pads because I donated them to a better cause, because he will get his own new ones soon, and he's got a different cape. And then for shits and giggles, here he is compared to the SH Figure Arts Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And my custom Mafex, or custom Mezco Michael Myers. So yeah, guys, largely, if you have not guessed, I am a very big fan of this figure, and I 100% recommend it. I think you guys should definitely pick it up. It is well worth it. I will put the link down in the description below so you guys can get this, because some people haven't been very upfront. Not upfront, but some people haven't been very open about where they got this figure from. So it can kind of leave you in a little... It can leave you in the dark a little bit, especially if you're somebody like me who doesn't really want to go on to AliExpress and buy an official figure off of a website that's mostly known for knockoff figures, especially with a figure that's got such low of a price point. But if you can get it cheaper somewhere else, I definitely recommend trying to do that. But for Amazon, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Amazon either, it worked out. So that will be down below. If you guys like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell. All that would be greatly appreciated. I highly recommend this figure. Don't go ahead and grab it if you want. And stay tuned for some other videos because I got some pretty sick customs coming your way that are in the works. I've been on a bit of a Batman fix lately, so I've been doing that. I have a custom Batmobile that I'm going to start working on here shortly, and I'll be doing a video on him. I'll be doing a video on him soon as well. Okay, so I'm going to shut up and get out of here. You guys stay, I don't know. Until next time, true believers.